Tulsi, there's been a noticeable shift in the media's focus to really not run away from the economy, but to try to spin this economy as something much different than it actually is in the real life of most Americans.
Yeah, Laura, it sounds like from some of the conversations you've been having with people there in Minneapolis, they get what all of these spin doctors don't. They actually see what's happening, which is, quote unquote, Bidenomics are failing the American people. But what people in Washington are not focusing on enough is what actually is Bidenomics. Bidenomics essentially is fascism, a kind of national socialism where we have government bureaucrats and politicians partnering and colluding with these massive corporations and the ultra rich to make these business deals, picking winners and losers that serve their own self-interest and the interests of the power elite at the cost of the well-being of the American people, not only today, but in the increasing debt that they are incurring that will affect us for generations to come. And foremost, the perfect example of this, Laura, you and I've talked about this before, is the military-industrial complex. They have essentially a blank check, an unaccounted amount of spending of taxpayer dollars. And if you or I or anyone else says, hey, is all that you're spending actually strengthening our national security? Is it serving the best interests of the American people? And maybe perhaps we should know where every dollar is being spent. If we say that, we are at risk of being called unpatriotic. I've been called that before for asking these very questions. And so people aren't even allowed to challenge or question where this spending is going and how it's benefiting the American people, what to speak of our economy and everyday Americans being able to, frankly, survive and live comfortably, what to speak of prosper in the United States of America.
Now, Biden wants us all, I think, Tulsi, to kind of clap like seals since year-over-year inflation isn't as high as it was last year. But since he's taken office, consumer prices have gone up nearly 16%. We obviously know what's happened with energy costs. Now, this is something that is really hitting the middle class, the lower middle class, really, really hard. The elites are kind of gliding above it, as they usually do.
And that's exactly what we're seeing as President Biden and his administration and the elites are celebrating, quote unquote, Bidenomics. The American people know better because those successes that are being touted are actually the opposite is being felt. And again, this is where we have to hold the Biden administration, the Democrat elite, accountable. This is not about, well, we just have to message things better. That's always their answer, rather than actually looking at what the problem is, because doing that would require them to look in the mirror.